Hey everybody, Tom King with King Loans, joined by my co-host, Mr. Terrence Stevens, real estate extraordinaire from T3 Real Estate. Welcome to the podcast, The Business of Life in Black and White, where each week we will discuss a variety of business and personal topics from two guys with different life experiences who thankfully have learned to lean on each other for a different perspective in order to make us both better. Mr. Stevens, how are you, sir?
Man, I am well. This is a long time coming. We've known each other since 2016, and we are 8 years in the game. And so there is definitely a lot of life experience between us two, and business and personal. So looking forward to this, looking forward to connecting with people and just providing some outlook on life.
Amen, brother. It's started in Haiti and ends with a bunch of real estate transactions, and there's a Black Lives Matter march somewhere in the middle with the
All
kids.
of it, all of it. There's so
Let's
many
fire
things.
away, brother. I want to for our first episode, want to start big. You and I both have obviously different perspectives, but we're also both not from the South. So I thought a fun place to start would be talking about real estate, mortgage, life, whatever you want to call it, in the South specifically, since our business is mostly done together in Metro Atlanta. Just
Yeah.
kind of dive into some of those topics and what Southern living and Southern business look like. So we'll start
Yeah.
there if it's cool with you.
Yes, perfect. Man, I have such strong ties to the South, and not because my family is from here or anything like that, but um, growing up, my actual grandfather relocated to Ackworth. And so being from up north, being an only child, my mom always found a way to send me down to my grandfather's house, which was in Ackworth, Georgia. And he made sure to introduce Metro Atlanta, and not just Ackworth and not just Cobb County, but Metro Atlanta to me, from the old Coke Museum to different science and history museums to just the collection of what Atlanta culture really was, what the culture of the South. And to me, for my entire child life, I was gravitated towards always wanting to come back to the South. And I think a few words that represented that for me, um, hospitality, like Southern hospitality was one of those things that always stood out. Legacy, strong familial legacy, right? Just the fact that you could come and have large family reunions, and you might meet somebody who's your family and have no clue, but just through conversation you find that 6 degrees of separation. There is nothing like the South. I'm from Maryland. I went to school out in California, and I've been in Atlanta 10 years. And I've been to 30 countries in the last 3 to 4 years. There is nothing like the South. I am always gravitated back to the South. So it's a standout for me, and I'm still every day finding out the reasons why.
I love it. I
How'd you,
mean,
how'd you end up here?
yeah. Everybody who kind of knows me knows our story. I mean, we just kind of got lucky and working for a big mortgage company in New Jersey, and they needed somebody to fill in Atlanta, and I had never been to Atlanta in my life. And as much as I've been to Florida a few times and knew what the South was a little bit about, we just took a flyer and up and went and temporarily took this job in Atlanta that turned into 15 years later and two kids and you and I and all that fun stuff. So we stumbled upon it, and same thing, man. Southern hospitality. As soon as I walked into the grocery store for the first time, I knew it was just my kind of people. It's
And
having conversation with everybody you bump into, and in New Jersey, it was put your head down if you walk by somebody on the sidewalk, and that
that's
that,
that's
that, that
that's the
ain't.
North. That's the North. I remember, and I think I told you this story. The house that you helped me buy back in 2018, I moved in. I'm super excited. I'm about community. I'm about welcoming people. And I look to my right, and my next door neighbor has a big garden in the back, and he is growing all types of produce. and an older gentleman. But the next thing I know, just through one conversation, I end up with a big bag of mustard greens on my front porch. And I said to myself, this is what the South is about, where you could just strike a conversation as somebody's looking to feed you out of their own garden, right? I think that is so representative of different places in the South, but specifically the melting pot that is Atlanta.
Yeah.
It
I
was
want
a
I
beautiful
want to
memory.
segue to somewhere for there, but before I let it slip past. So grandpa lived in Ackworth, and what kind of span of time was this?
This was, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's been here for 30 plus years. If I'm 33, I might have been 7 or 8. He lived here in the 90s.
Okay.
He lived
So
here in the 2000s. He's still here.
so my question is, in the 90s in Ackworth, were you like the only black dude walking down the street?
I can tell you that it felt that way as a kid. I was not super cognizant of that. My
Yeah.
grandfather's ex-military. He's married to a Japanese woman still to this day. He is all about diversity. And so even if that is what Ackworth represented at the time, it never felt that way.
Cool. You didn't know.
And so maybe that's just my own ignorance of where we were at in the time. But
Yeah.
now knowing what I know about Ackworth and Kennesaw,
He's probably dealing with some stuff you weren't aware of.
correct. And he's now down in Marietta off Windy Hill. So he came a little closer to town on purpose. But yeah, I never felt it, man. It to me at that time, Georgia just felt like a welcoming place for all people. And obviously, the closer to the city, the better. And especially when you look like somebody like me. But that's just what we deal with.
Yep. All right. So as you know, you and I are certainly not the pinnacle of success, and yet in your industry and my industry, we are two guys that have created a pretty high level of success in our individual businesses, and we've done it in the South. And I think we've done it by capitalizing on what you just discussed of people and hospitality and community. You and I have both kind of built our businesses that way, not necessarily a traditional 400 phone calls a day sales business. It's a go out into the streets, whether it's you on the belt line or me coaching Little League.
Yeah.
We're getting
Yeah.
deals from our life more so than other people. So what's your perspective on that? Is that intentional? Is that something you've learned? Is it where's that come from and why?
Yeah. The whole precipice of my life is relationships. As an only child with a single mom, I had to lean in on friends. I had to lean in on other families as I was growing up. And that made me realize the importance of relationships, right? The ones that you had to create instead of ones that you were born into. And so being in a place like Georgia, having truly nobody here but just my grandfather and his wife and a few friends, I just start fresh, and especially getting into a new business. Although I had different connections through life, this was about identity, right? And I always, as I explain it to younger agents that I coach, as I explain it to just different people in the entrepreneur world, who are you to other people? What do people think about when they think about your name? And so I knew that there was a way to come in and establish myself as somebody that can be personable, relatable. I've been called a bulldog by clients, like somebody who just goes after it, right? And so for me, I know for a fact it's always been about how to create, sustain, and nourish relationships. And I've never taken my foot off of that gas. Never will. I don't like inorganic things, probably besides the food that I eat, but we'll go there at a different time, right? But I just like organic relationships. And even now, as I work the belt line with my team and I'm out there every weekend and I have people come by and one of my taglines is that I'm just looking to make new relationships with people outside of the computer. And right now, and especially post-corona, that's where the majority of our industry tried to really create new relationships. And so people are so used to seeing internet profiles, so used to seeing social media be the reason that they can connect with you, but people still want to shake hands. They still want to look you in the eye. They still want to hear the tone of your voice. And I think that's extremely important as we take this transition in the digital age of business. It's great, be digital, but don't lose the essence of being personal at the same time.
I haven't told you this, but I have definitely felt in the last couple of years, and part of it is due to us moving, but I have definitely felt that my skills at talking to people, especially random people, have
Mhm.
diminished because of what we did COVID wise, to the extent that, and I'll fall on the sword because Amanda will tell the truth if I don't, that we had one of our first agent meetings where we met with a new agent who's very successful down here in Alabama, and we had a business meeting with her, and we know her husband well. I walked out of that meeting and I looked at Amanda, and she, in the nicest way possible, looked at me and was kind of like, dude, what the hell was that? Like, that was like, not, you did nothing in there. Like,
Yeah.
that was terrible, basically.
Wow.
And, I've been fighting to kind of try to get back to that level. It's been something I've been so good at for so long. And man, you hit the nail on the head. Like that stupid social media and stupid COVID, man, I took one on the
And
chin.
I have had people come up to the belt line. I mean, and we're the only people that I see on the belt line doing this thing now. Don't steal my idea, anybody. But if I say I'm going to take the town, then I actually have to take the town. It can't just be lip service. And so, what better way to take the town than to literally be in the town, meeting people, shaking hands? And again, from Corona, we got away from that. Shaking hands. Oh my gosh, hand sanitizer. Now, again, no worries, okay? But human interaction, human touch, embracing somebody, you cannot fabricate that. You cannot try to replace that with a Zillow lead or showing your presence on the internet. There is, people need and desire genuine connection. And I feel
Right.
like through the last few years, we have tossed that to the wayside because it seems more efficient to do all of this from a computer. But I think right now, as the industry shifts, as the world shifts, and people get back outside, they want to see the people who are hitting the ground. End of story.
So you're a super genuine dude, and I think people can kind of see that. And yet, and I am as well, to a fault. My wife would tell you that I just trust everybody, and that's going to get me toast someday, but whatever. So being super genuine, and you're doing something for a purpose, how do you make it feel to other people like you're not out there trying to sell them something, right? Like how do you get out there, do something no one else is doing, and not feel like you're being some kind of pushy sales guy, or have people feel that way about
I think at the end of the day, you're going to get those people who think that regardless. I'm a 6'2", 300-pound Black man asking people to come take a picture with me, come have a conversation with me. Last week, we actually played Jenga with people on the belt line, and my Jenga pieces had prizes on them. Obviously, come from contribution. I'm always out there giving something, right? Whether that's education, some type of prize, some type of a reward for doing something. But ultimately, people are shocked, right? Like, because one of my lines is, last week we gave out Starbucks gift cards. So one of my lines has become, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm actually buying,
it?
right? And people now
Love it.
go,
Love it. Yep.
right? And if I am selling something, it's myself,
Mm.
right? But I don't have a cost. You can't buy me, right? But I am here to sell the fact that I am doing what I'm saying, and I'm not just providing you some type of talk about what's being done, but I'm walking too. And you can see me in real life. This is hi, my name is Terrence Stevens. I am the owner of T3 Real Estate, and this is my team. Check us all out. Fill us out. Talk to us. We're here. We're real life. And right now, there's so many of us who are hiding behind computers. Nobody would ever know who you are.
Yeah. So because nobody else is doing this, I mean, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, like you're literally not asking. There is no ask. When you're walking down the belt line, it is
So,
introduction, get to know us, no ask. Here's a Starbucks card, period.
so we're evolving. Our first try at this was take a picture with my key, which is the big take in the town key, and you can have a $10 Starbucks gift card. It struck up 50. I had 50 Starbucks cards. I spent $500 on this, and I met 50 new people that day. Okay. That was the first round. Then I thought to myself, now we can be a bit more engaging, right? So now we have some games involved. I actually have a QR code that people are able to scan, and we do a raffle on Mondays for a larger gift card. But in that, I'm asking for your information, which is nothing more than a phone number, an email, a name. But many people are like, yeah, why not? I need more information. I have questions. Um, and I even have now, we might evolve now. There's an attorney who does something similar on the belt line, but just has a chair and a sign that says, ask an attorney. The line is wrapped,
Mm,
right?
that's good. Yeah.
Yes, he could charge because
Yeah.
he normally charges per hour, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But for the sake of creating new relationships, come with contribution and leave with new
And
relationships.
if all you're asking for is their phone number and their email, the fact that you're giving them a $20 gift card to Starbucks before you're asking for anything and all you're asking for, then inherently they're going to at least trust you enough to say he's not going to do something crazy with my phone number or my email, right? I mean, that's kind of the
Without
deal.
question. And at the end of the day, they're being directed to a website, they're being directed to our social media. You can see us in real life, or I'm giving you the option to see us on the digital landscape as well. But every week now, I have 100 pictures of people with my key taking the town because it's for everybody. And at the end of the day, taking this back to the surface, this was all about meeting new people. I don't want a cold call. I'm just not that guy. I don't translate well over the phone, even though I can speak. And yeah, we all can do that. I want to meet people in person so that they have an everlasting memory of that guy, those guys, that team on the belt line. And just last week, we had some return people on the belt line because they have a schedule of their own, right? So now when we talk about being top of mind in business, these people are seeing us once, seeing
Yeah.
us twice, and now we're cementing ourselves within their regiment,
Yeah.
right? It's been a beautiful thing. I'm
I
not
love it.
stopping.
I love it. You're doing great, man. I love it. Um, we could talk about that for an hour, but let's go slightly more real estate specific. So, again, Atlanta metro market's been hot for years. It was a huge destination for people during COVID. So was the North Georgia mountains. All kinds of influx of population. Whatever, even over the last decade or so in Atlanta. So real estate wise, now we're in a transitioning market. Interest rates suck. The real estate market has started to change or transition in some ways, but then in other ways, we're still, we got 30 offers on stuff whether it's economically or socially. Like where do you think we're at on the spectrum right now in the real estate market, and where do you think we go in the short term?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always, just because I'm young in this business, right? I'm been licensed for 7 years, if you will. But I haven't gone through some of the cycles that some more of my seasoned colleagues have. And so for me, I like to really quiet out that noise. There's a lot of noise going around about changes and what to expect. And my words have always been get in where you fit in. Get in where you fit in, wherever that might be, whatever city that might be, whatever home, condo, loft, townhouse that might be, whatever financial situation that might, just get in. Because if you haven't already, you're behind the curve. because there are people who have had the opportunity to get in and now they're reaping the benefits of, I didn't get that perfect house back in 2019, 2020, but I did get a house that is now worth substantially more. And so I have the leverage, whether that means I'm pulling out a HELOC to do things, or I'm selling my house and using the equity to go do something else, like repurchase or move overseas. I've got people doing that. At the end of the day, you have to get in now, fit in wherever you can, and be able to make a transitional point in the next cycle of this business. And so there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of misinformation going on. But if you can find a way to strategically, and even if that means companionship, partnership, you might have a friend who wants to purchase make it happen together. Come to an agreement together. Be out here looking to make ways to do the thing that has become harder. And a lot of people will give up, which is why you have to take the opportunity to come in, because there's going to be less competition. There are going to be people who feel like I can't do it, which means it's more possible for those who really feel like they can.
I want to circle back to that in a second. But you said something interesting. So I'm gonna forget the podcast. I listened to a podcast by a couple guys, and they talk about having like financial freedom, or building a life, kind of like the Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week situation, right? How to build a life of freedom, whatever that means for you. And one of the things that he talked about, and again, don't let me forget, I want to circle back to how expensive the market is. One of the things that he talked about was how we in the United States do such a bad job, and yet the rest of the world does so good about a blended family housing situation, right?
Sir.
Is we've got to have our own car and our own house and our
Yes,
own
sir.
whatever, whereas the rest of the world, in most cultures, grandma lives there too, or the aunt and uncle live and help
Everybody's
take care
pulling
of the
their
kids.
weight.
Right.
Everybody's pulling their weight. They have to. That's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
miss the mark culturally on divide and conquer,
Yeah.
right? It is, and I get it. We're also a community, or we're also a culture who thrives on independence and trying to be the only one who has the only thing. Partnership, collaboration will be the new era of how people are able to move through this life. Because it is getting more and more expensive to just live.
Right. And that's where I wanted to go, right? It's so, as we sit here today, the national average on the 30-year fixed is over 7%. You can't buy a flipping house in any decent neighborhood, it seems, in Atlanta for under $400,000, right? So if you've got two, I'll call them kids because I'm old at this point, but you got two, 26-year-old kids that just got married and want to go buy their first house, and they both make $75,000, which used to be amazing, right? Like, you can't afford a $500,000 house with a first-time homebuyer down payment and a 7% interest rate, right? That's a $3,700 mortgage payment that somehow you're being asked to swallow. You and I are always real good at being positive, and what you said earlier, I totally agree. Now's the time to buy because the competition's less. What do you do? How do you navigate what seems to be an impossibly expensive market for kids?
Nothing's impossible. Nothing is impossible. There is houses being bought and sold every day. There are now the potential of assumable loans out there, which have not been a thing in the past. There are builders from the new construction world who are incentivizing you by paying a lot of your cost. There are sellers who are desperate because they've got to make different moves. You have to be strategic. And I think it starts with, if you don't know where to go, if you don't know what to do, then lean into somebody who has expertise in this thing, whether that be right now, whether that be expertise of the last cycle in the last 10 years. I just remember 3 years ago where we were complaining about the market and we were at the lowest rates. But the complaint then was there's not enough inventory and it's extremely cheap to buy. And we had to find the solution, right? You will always have to find the solution. You know me. There is no problem that does not have 100 solutions. And so brainstorm, get connected with those who have the information, get connected with people in your immediate circle who might have some of the same goals that you have. Understand how you're able to collaborate and don't be too prideful. I think a lot of this has to do with pride, right? I'm way too prideful. And often I tell people, especially when it comes to a budget time, I'm like, yes, you see a number and that number seems high in your budget. No worries. But if you could only imagine the amount of money that you frivolously spend when you don't like the space that you live in, because you're always eating out. You don't like your kitchen. You're always going out to drink because you don't have a bar at home. You're spending frivolous money because you don't like the space that you live in.
That's
So
good.
if you sacrificed to find a space that you love, that you can invite your people to, or they can invite you to, I guarantee your budget now shifts in favor of, I'm spending more time and money at home. I'm getting more out of what I do at home, which is why I think Corona was such an eye-opening experience. There were so many people who realized how important it was to be at home. We pay enough. We pay enough for it.
Yep, it's great. I hadn't thought about it that way. I love it.
It's so much. I mean, there's just frivolous spending, and I just like, and this is my grandfather. My grandfather was a financial advisor, still to this day is able to give financial literacy, and specifically in the military for vets. His biggest thing was budgeting, understanding what was coming in, what was going out, how much ratio should be spent for your living. I mean, just to nauseum, beat it in my head to the point where now I'm just looking at people like, you spend $300, $400 extra every week to go outside.
Yeah.
That's $1,200 a month.
Yep. It's like the argument when somebody wants to build a pool, right? It's like, yeah, $70,000 pool sounds really expensive. Except my country club's got a $50,000 entry fee and
There you go.
$1,000 a month, right?
There you go.
That joker off real
You
quick.
tell me what, and again, people don't take the time to really strategize what that looks like and weight and balance. And I think it's just a lazy way of going about this thing. Put a piece of paper down, put a pencil down, really work out what you do. And I will often give the advice to clients: buy for your lifestyle. Whatever that lifestyle is, it's going to change 3 to 5 years, but buy for your lifestyle right now. Stop buying for school systems if you don't have kids. Stop buying close to the belt line if you don't work out, right? Like but do invest in those things if they're important to your lifestyle right now.
Yeah, that's good. All right, a couple quick fun stuff to wrap this thing up, and I'll let you go. So you're a big Hateville guy. You were definitely at the beginning of that charge, like you said. I remember when you bought that house and kind of how that's gone down. So I know you've got an affinity for that neighborhood, and I also know you've been all over the world and you've seen a whole bunch of stuff. So at this very moment, what's your favorite little neighborhood pocket or piece of Metro Atlanta? Like true favorite. What did you see that you've fallen in love with here?
Oh, just shout out to Hateville first and foremost.
I knew this was coming. I tried to get around it.
I cannot get around that. Hateville, Georgia is the gem of South Atlanta. If you have not seen it, it is the home to Porsche, Delta, Wells Fargo, Chick-fil-A headquarters. I mean, everything is in Hateville and it is blown up. And I'm 5 minutes away from the airport.
Yeah.
If all of those things were not important to my lifestyle, okay? If all of those things, the love of my life, okay, currently exist in that Kirkwood, Reynoldstown, Ormwood Park, that kind of East Atlanta, still close enough to the city, but far enough to be out of traffic and congestion, even parts of like Decatur, right? Downtown Decatur. I think all of that has this very young, hip, young family oriented but very transitional. Once we start getting into, my kids are getting older, we need to send them to some better school, no worries. Now we can transition you to these other suburb neighborhoods. But the best of the best is that East Atlanta um, pocket of those small hippie towns that people love to be in because they're walkable and they're diverse, extremely diverse. They might have some magnet schools, some more private institutions for young kids to go to, and still 15 to 20 minutes away from the airport, and just downtown Midtown. It's lovely over there.
I remember like 16 years ago when that area just started, when we were living in Atlanta, and that area just started to kind of become popular. Man, it just took off.
Booming right now. And by way of the Beltline, frankly, East Atlanta is where the Beltline started, and that Beltline is just continuing to expand. And there's so much quality of life in Atlanta, but there's so much quality of life in these different pockets of the city. And even I'll give a last shout out to West Midtown, the other side of the Beltline and the other side of industrial evolution in Atlanta. It's booming in West Midtown.
Taqueria del Sol, baby.
I mean, it is booming. And so I think as we talk about how much the city of Atlanta is thriving, there is like Metro Atlanta is thriving. You've got everything in your suburbs that you can ask for, but Metro Atlanta is thriving. So come get yourself a piece. Get in where you fit in, baby. Call Tom King, call Taking the Town Real Estate, and get yourself a piece.
I love it. All right, last thing. This is the question we're both going to answer. And again, I'm going to continuously on this podcast lean into the fact that you and I are willing to say anything, especially if it's self-deprecating. So
Yes.
The question
you gotta answer first. You gotta answer first.
I was just gonna say I'll even answer mine first and give you a second to mull it over. So the question is, what is the dumbest thing you've done? Let's call it in the past week. And if you need to extend a tear or whatever, but let's go with the dumbest thing that you have done. And mine's probably not super funny, but because it's top of mind, because right before we started this podcast, I got in some trouble in my household. The dumbest thing that I have done this week and that I'm going to do again in an hour and 15 minutes is I think I've got 2 torn meniscuses based on my chiropractor. And it's from playing a whole bunch of pickleball here lately. And then we competed in this CrossFit competition last Saturday. And you know, an ace bandage on your knee doesn't stop a torn meniscus from hurting. And man, there's just something about being outside and working out and exercise that is my happy place. And I'm gonna go to the gym again today and hopefully not make too bad of a life choice, but it ain't a great one, that's for sure. But
I am probably aligned right with that. I am an ex-athlete who has this chip on my shoulder that nothing is going to hold me down for too long. Um, I went dancing out all night on Sunday. I mean, literally danced my feet off. To the point where Monday morning I got out of bed. I'm getting older, okay? It's not 10 years ago. Got out of bed, stepped on my right foot, and almost fell because my legs were that swollen. And I sat back in bed and said, you cannot go out all night and anymore and dance without like proper recovery. And so I think it is the fact that age is getting to us. I had to give myself a 90-minute massage that day. I had to like sit down, raise my legs up. And so I think the dumbest thing is not realizing that you're no longer 20, you're no longer early 30s, and there are things that you must do to ensure the integrity of your body. So we can do this thing every day, but you and I have that chip on our shoulder. We want to work out, we want to sweat, we want to feel macho, and we need that to deliver to our clients and deliver to our family the best. So just like you, swollen legs and all, I'm going back to the gym today. And God is going to have to decide when he wants to sit me down for good. Okay. But
Amen,
for right
brother.
now, I'm doing what I got to do with the limbs that I have.
I like it. I like it. Well, listen, I love you, buddy. We're going to hit this up again next week and we'll dive down a different rabbit hole. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope that
Not way.
Terrence and I can either entertain you or bring you some valuable information going forward on this podcast, The Business of Life in Black and
In
White.
black and white, baby. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, brother.